mere 276 days to go until the release of Prince Caspian. Hopefully get some better audio quality from now that I've got the microphone hooked up. But my second set report is online from when I visited the set of Prince Caspian in Prague forever ago, or it seems like forever ago. It's such a meaningful time for me anytime I get to release these reports, the most incredible time of my life. And so the reports this time around creatures and visual effects, they center around Howard Berger and Dean Wright's work or contribution to the film. And they were both nominated for Oscars for the first film. Howard Berger won. And the report is pretty long. It's not as good as my first report. It doesn't have as many spoilers, but it's still pretty long. And the interview is massive. So what I'm going to do right here is try to summarize some of the most interesting things in the report, in the interviews, and then just giving my thoughts on them, because they are massive. Before you read them, better get a glass of water or something. But let's start with the main report. I think it's interesting that Shane Rangi is, first off, the Bulgy Bear is going to be in the film. Awesome. Hopefully he'll suck his paws, as something in my report indicates. But he's going to be standing in for Aslan, which is pretty cool. He just has, apparently he just wears, the front legs and the head. I think this is helpful, not just for animation reference, not for just the interaction, but for the actor's benefit. I think the reason that Georgie Henley couldn't really get any tears out when Aslan died, and why that she wasn't really good in that scene, was because she didn't really know Aslan. She knew James McAvoy, so it was sad when she saw that statue and she could cry. But when Aslan was just like a ping pong ball or a statue or whatever. And so I think it's great to have Shane Rangi, someone they know, actually standing in for Aslan. Hopefully we'll get better performances out of it. And speaking of Aslan, they talk in this featurette about how, or in this interview, about how they actually hug. Lucy and Aslan actually hug and roll over, and which is awesome. Can't wait to see that. A memorable part of the book. We'll have to see if it's the same context, whatever. Shane Rangi says he also plays a wild bear that the children meet in the story. So I guess until further evidence turns up, we have to assume that this is the bear in the book that Trumpkin shoots, that Susan almost shoots. But Susan doesn't shoot it because she doesn't like killing things, which is why Susan should not be fighting in the film, or not Legolas fighting at least. But anyway, so that wild bear thing is apparently in the film. Now, knowing Andrew Adamson, it'll probably be expanded to an army of bears doing backflips or whatever, and they have this big scene where they're surrounded by bears. He'll expend on the scene in the book, but no, I'm kind of kidding. But so we'll see what they do with that. Great that it looks like it'll be in the film at all. The Bulgy Bear apparently sucks his paws. That's fantastic. Wimbleweather's in the movie. The way they're doing is they're getting an actor 7 feet tall, and they're apparently going to use at least one of the methods they're using is to make one of the sets smaller. I don't know this for sure, but it seems to me that Wimbleweather will be about 14 feet tall, based on everything I know, and I'm no mathematician, but everything I read in the interview indicates that that's the approximate size. Don't quote me on that one. I'm just completely guessing. There's going to be a dwarf battle in this movie. I don't know. Does he mean? I don't know if he means the dwarves fighting each other, or it's just a sequence in the battle where the dwarves fight. I don't know. The dwarves, by the way, looked a lot better in this movie than they did in the last film. Of course, in the first movie they looked terrible. In this movie they look really cool. Looking forward to that. There's a sequence in the middle of the film where they raid the Telmarine castle, and they're trying to capture someone. Now, when Dean Wright said capture, could he have meant rescue? Because I believe Jim Fan 15 said in her Comic-Con report that they're trying to rescue a dwarf. There's a dwarf tied up there. I think she said that. So are they perhaps trying to rescue Trumpkin? And does Trumpkin get captured when he's trying to get to the Pevensies? There's a lot of different options, a lot of different things I've considered of that. Whatever. But who could they be trying to capture? Capture Miraz, maybe? I mean, this is the idea. Let me just say that the idea of adding a big action scene in the middle of the film doesn't bother me so much. There are battles in the middle of Prince Caspian. It's not that much of a stretch to have another big castle raid. But they're trying to capture someone to help win the war or whatever. We're getting into some really distant territory from the book here. So that's pretty, that's a cause for concern. We'll see what they do with it. I really don't know who they're trying to capture. Or maybe they're trying to get Cornelius back or something. capture. I guess we have to assume it's a bad guy then, unless maybe Dean Wright just meant rescue. But so it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. And that castle raid scene takes place in the Telmarine courtyard, which I'll talk about in my next report. They talk about some of the individual character arcs of the four children. The interesting things. He says that Peter thinks he can do stuff on his own. I guess they're trying to make a whole subplot out of this or whatever. Maybe try to make humility the main theme of the movie or something. But with what Caspian's doing. And I guess that's where the main conflict comes in. And I really don't like where they're going with this whole the kings and queens rivalry thing. I really just think I said before, it takes away from the reverence that Caspian has for them. We'll see. Lucy doesn't have the courage to stand up for her beliefs. I don't like the sound of this at all. This makes me nervous. I'm not really sure what they mean exactly, but all I can say is that Lucy is so faithful. That's one of the things that's memorable about her as a character, is that she's so faithful to the end. She follows Aslan even though the others can't see him. And even though it's difficult, she pulls through in the end. That's important to her character. So I really don't like the sound of that. We'll see what they do. Susan doesn't admit that she wants to be Narnia. Susan can't face that she's really there, or wants to leave, or doesn't want to leave. This sounds like typical Susan wet blanket stuff to me. That sounds interesting right there. That sounds like typical Susan stuff. Edmund's just trying to grow up and have a piece of the action and be a man. I don't know. You don't really know how you can interpret some of that stuff. They're just little lines he's saying. Oh, he says for sure it's going to be a PG film. No surprise here whatsoever. There's too much money to be lost by making these PG-13 films. PG big budget films are in. Period. I think, with the possible exception of Last Battle, I think it'd be a pretty good guess to say that all the Narnia films will get PG ratings. I really think so. They talk a lot about the character of Asterius, the Minotaur. I still don't like the fact that the Minotaurs are in the film. I don't want the Minotaurs in the film at all, so I'm hoping that at the very least they'll kill all of them off. That'd be kind of as sick as that might sound. That'd be kind of a satisfying moment for me. It's like, yeah, you don't belong in this book. Die. But he also talks about that the castle raid that takes place in the middle of the film doesn't go well. Maybe Peter will kill him off and say, hey, you don't belong in this book. That'd be pretty cool. That's my dream scene. But finally, we get a good long sentence about Reepicheep. They say he has some funny, touching moments. And we already know from the cover, the title of a children's book based on the book, picture book, that this we believe at least that the scene where his tail gets cut off will be in the film. There's a very good possibility of that based on what we know, which is fantastic. And Aslan regrows his tail. It's such a memorable moment in the book and important. But it says that Reepicheep will have some. I can see Reepicheep being used for comic relief. He's an amusing character, no doubt about that. You have an underlining respect for him, though, even though he's a funny character. So I'm overall encouraged by what Dean Wright said about him having some funny moments, but some serious moments. And you want him to be cool, and when he's killing people, but not laugh at it. There's that fine line. They had the same problem, I think, with Yoda in the Star Wars prequels. But he says that they'll have. So I was overall quite encouraged by what they said about Reepicheep. Except they said there's going to be different looks for the mice in the book. They all look similar. In this one, they're all going to have their own different characteristics. I'm fine with that. It's film. In the book, you just say there's Reepicheep, there's Peepeekeek. In a movie, you've got to be able to visually communicate which character is which. But a white Reepicheep, I mean, what's really going to annoy me is what if another mouse is like dark and Reepicheep is white? That's going to annoy me. I just want to say right now, I hate the idea of a white Reepicheep. I hate it. And I just think the black is so awesome. Go read Lewis's awesome description of Reepicheep in Voyage of the Dawn Treader and see what I mean. Can't stand the idea of a white Reepicheep. That just messes everything up. But I have nothing but great things to say about the overall look and feel of Prince Caspian. The costumes, the sets, cinematography, sort of a darker feel. I think everything looks great. And some leaps in the mechanical heads and everything. And all that looks great. But like Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, I think the missing link in the chain here is the script. Those two guys writing, Marcus and McFeely, they got to get them out of there. I think they were by far the biggest problem with Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I think Wardrobe could have been a great film if those two guys, if they just gotten different writers. But so I think they got to ditch those guys. It seems to be the main problem with the story. But 276 days to go. My next set report will be up in a few weeks as I'll keep looking for it. And please go to NarniaWeb, narniaweb.com, go into the forum, or leave a comment after my story and tell me what you think. But next report will be up in a few weeks, and can't wait.